Most dogs, within 48 hours of their owner disappearing, will begin showing signs of psychological collapse, not hunger, grief. Now imagine that, but for every pet on the planet, simultaneously. Here's what almost nobody talks about. We've spent 15,000 years genetically rewiring these animals to need us. Not want us, need us. And in doing that, we may have quietly stripped away the very instincts that could keep them alive without us. So what actually happens next? Which ones survive, and which ones were never really built to? The answer is going to make you look at your pet very differently. The first thing that would probably happen, and this is almost hard to think about, is that most pets would just wait, dogs especially. There's this beautiful, heartbreaking loyalty baked into them after 15,000 years of coevolution with humans. A dog doesn't decide to stop trusting you. It waits by the door, it circles, it whines a little, and then it waits some more. Studies on dog behavior after owner absence show that dogs can experience genuine separation distress within hours. Their cortisol levels spike. Their behavior becomes erratic. Some dogs scratch through walls trying to find their people. So in those first 48 hours, the emotional reality for most dogs would be something close to grief. Cats would probably be fine by Tuesday. I say that with love. Cats are fundamentally different in this regard. They tolerate us more than they depend on us, emotionally speaking, and their stress response to absence is much flatter than a dog's. A cat would sniff around, realize something was off, knock something off a shelf out of habit, and then find a warm patch of sunlight to sleep in. But here's where it gets interesting, because after the waiting ends, the real transformation begins. At some point, the food runs out, and that's when instinct starts quietly reasserting itself underneath all the domestication. Dogs, depending on their breed and background, would begin to reorganize. Smaller dogs, your Chihuahuas, your Pomeranians, your fancy little apartment breeds, would honestly struggle. They've been so selectively bred away from survival traits that their instincts are genuinely dulled. A teacup Yorkie is not built for a world without kibble. It's not a criticism, it's just a biological reality. But medium and larger breeds, they'd start doing something fascinating. They'd form packs. This has actually been documented in places where human societies have collapsed partially. Think of the stray dog populations in parts of Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. Dogs, when left without human structure, revert to loose social hierarchies. Not quite wolf packs, but something in that direction. They share food, they establish territory, they develop communication rituals that are more complex than anything we see in our living rooms. There's something almost poetic about that, right? Like the wolf that was buried inside the golden retriever was always just waiting patiently. If dogs are the scrappy survivors rebuilding community, cats are something else entirely. Cats would, and I mean this with total sincerity, probably thrive. Feral cat colonies already exist and function without human intervention. Domestic cats, given enough time, slide back into those behaviors with surprising ease. They're obligate carnivores with intact predatory instincts. They're crepuscular hunters, most active at dawn and dusk, which means they're already built for a world where prey is moving and humans aren't watching. Within a generation or two of human absence, domestic cat populations would likely bifurcate. Some, especially in areas with abundant prey, would go fully feral. Others, and this is the part I find oddly touching, would probably linger near human structures. Not because they miss us exactly, but because our buildings are warm, our spaces are familiar, and our absence doesn't immediately erase 15 years of associating those places with comfort and safety. Cats would haunt our old apartments like little furry ghosts, and somehow that feels very on brand for them. Now, I want to pause here and talk about the animals we don't usually think about when we imagine this scenario. The hamsters, the fish, the parrots, the pet rabbits, because their story is honestly harder. A hamster in a sealed tank without food or water lives maybe 3 to 5 days. A tropical fish in an aquarium without a running pump or heating element would face oxygen depletion and temperature collapse within days. These are animals so removed from a natural ecosystem that they have almost no runway without human support. Parrots are a strange case. They're cognitively complex, emotionally deep, and capable of genuine distress. A parrot that loses its flock, and for a parrot we are the flock, can enter a state of psychological decline that looks remarkably like human grief. Some parrots call for their owners for years. There's a reason people say parrots are a lifetime commitment. They mean it literally. The takeaway here isn't grim for the sake of being grim. It's that we've made choices as a species to bring animals into relationships of profound dependency. And that's a responsibility that doesn't get talked about enough. But zoom out further. Past the first year, past the first decade, And something remarkable starts to happen. Nature, as it always does, begins to recalibrate. Domesticated animals that survive long enough, dogs especially in communities and across generations, begin to select for different traits. Survival traits, leaner bodies, sharper senses, less reliance on human cues for emotional regulation. The pug face, gorgeous and ridiculous as it is, would not survive natural selection. Within a few generations, you'd start to see something that looks more like a proto-dog emerging from the genetic chaos. There are ecosystems around the world where this process has already begun. The Carolina dog, for instance, sometimes called the American dingo, is thought to be a domestic dog that went feral thousands of years ago and has since readapted to wildlife. They're quiet, cautious, lean, and deeply self-sufficient. That's the direction things would trend. And honestly, there's something hopeful in that. Life is persistent. Adaptation is relentless. The story doesn't end just because we do. So here's what I keep coming back to after all of this. Our pets are not just animals that happen to live in our homes. They're participants in one of the longest, strangest, most intimate relationships in the history of life on this planet. We have shaped them. They have shaped us, our empathy, our sense of companionship, our emotional vocabulary, and the fact that many of them would struggle without us isn't a sign of weakness in them. It's a sign of how deep the bond goes. It's a sign that love, even across species, even when it's wordless and expressed in tail wags and slow blinks, creates real dependency. Maybe the lesson is quieter than a survival scenario. Maybe it's just this: they're counting on us. Not abstractly, not philosophically, every single day. So maybe give yours an extra moment today. They've earned it. Subscribe to the channel. Every week, we publish fascinating videos about everything imaginable, from hidden mysteries and shocking discoveries to stories that will completely change the way you see the world. Don't miss the next one.